Help us to reconnect with you, to remind ourselves about your love, and to learn to love you more. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So we are on a series to learn how to build community. We are known as the SDA Community Church. So how good a community are we? I talked about how there are different groups of us, but maybe the different groups among us don't know each other. So that's my first challenge for SDAC, that we should get to know each other. That there's a lot of opportunities throughout the day, from Sabbath school, worship time, we don't really get to talk. Please don't talk during worship. No, I'm just kidding. And then after worship, there's potluck. Why is potluck important? Or we like to call it fellowship lunch important? Because it's for fellowship. It's a time where you not just consume food, but it's a time where the church as a family comes together, as a community comes together to eat food and get to know each other. And then what else? When else can we connect? This year you will notice SDAC is also having regular social events. So those social events are planned by the social committee, and we're trying to give the church time outside of church hours that we can come and get to know each other. Also, really, the women ministry have done really well. That the women ministry, on top of the church social, have started to organize their own activities. I know the next one coming, I'm really excited about it because it's about rice dumplings. And they're going to learn how to wrap rice dumplings, so any leftover, don't worry. We will sort it out for you, ladies. So they're meeting together, they're learning how to wrap it. I tried to help my mom wrap it, and one key thing I learned about wrapping rice dumpling is this. Do not be greedy. Or else, 2 pieces of leaves will not be enough. It will not look triangle or pyramid-like. It will look like a meatloaf. And it will not be cooked. You know, there's a wisdom in the ancestors, the pioneers, where they wrapped it in that shape so that when you steam it, it gets cooked through. When it's this big, outer layer is cooked. Inside is not good for health. Alright, so they're going to have that. And today we're talking about building community based on the idea of honor. And this is inspired from the verse, Romans 12, verse 10. Her name is Agnes Boyashu, and that's how I thought I learned to pronounce it from the internet. She spent her life not living in her hometown, as you see her name, but she moved to Calcutta and spent her life living with the unloved, uncared for, unwanted. And towards her end of her life, she was given the name, and she calls herself Mother Teresa. And you ask her, Mother Teresa, why did you move from the comfort of your home to a place where it's so uncomfortable and out of your usual culture, and it's not a place that people go there to enjoy themselves? And this is what she said. She said, each one of them is Jesus in disguise. She said, everyone I come into contact with in India are Jesus in disguise. Each person I meet represents the person that Jesus died for. That's why I'm going to spend my life serving them, spending my life honoring them as human beings, as sons and daughters of God. And that's why she didn't feel that it was a sacrifice. She didn't feel it was a suffering. She felt that it was an honor. How about us? We're not in India, we're not unwanted, uncared for, and we're not in a place where life is hard or anybody coming to our community will have to suffer. But how do we look upon one another? When we see the face we meet in church, who are they to us? Are they just another church member? Or do we recognize that we are amongst royalty? That all of us are sons and daughters of the King? That when we meet somebody, we meet the Prince of the universe. We meet somebody, we meet the Princess of the universe. Who do we think this community is? Who are they, and what are they made up of? It's a story about 2 professors in school. I'm not going to tell you which school, so that you will not try to guess who they are. But there's a big difference between these 2 professors that really impacted anybody coming into contact with them. If you meet the first professor, I will not give any names, you will feel pretty much enriched, uplifted, and you feel that you want to see him again. This other professor, when you see him, you do not want to see him. You see him, you turn your face away. And from a survey of all the people who have come into contact with these two professors, these were the conclusion of what was the difference in every encounter with these two professors. The first professor, whenever you meet him, he would smile and he will call you by your name. He actually knows your name, and before he leaves you, he will say something affirming. He'll say something to affirm you as a person, to uplift you, and when you leave him, you will feel that you are valued and uplifted. And that's the constant experience of every single student that comes into contact with this professor. With the second professor, this is what usually happens in an encounter if you cannot run away from him. So usually, if you see this professor walking down the hallway, you turn and you walk the other way. If you see him coming and there's nowhere to turn, you turn left. If there's no left to turn, you go into the toilets. But sometimes, it's just the locker rooms and you and him. And you come to an encounter with him, and this is what happens. Sorry, this is for the first one. Every time you come to an encounter with this professor, you feel a dig, a cut, comments about you and how you dress, or how you look like, or how you behave. He was always belittling, condescending, patronizing. Every single experience of every student with him, this is how they feel. And this is what they experience. You tell me, why is he still a professor? Simply because he has a PhD. Permanent head damage. And every time leaving him, you will feel depreciated and worn down. You do not feel like it was a good experience encountering him. And all it was just words coming out of two different people. Different kind of words, different choice of words. An attitude, a mindset. When I meet somebody, what they want to leave behind is totally different between these two. This second professor failed to honor people, where the first one sought to honor people. In relationship building, there are things that builds up the building, and there are things that will tear down the building. What are we as a church seeking to do? When we meet somebody else amongst us, do we seek to build a deeper, stronger relationship? Or do we seek to destroy our relationship with one another? The words we say to one another in our daily encounter, in our weekly encounter, what is the first thought that comes to your mind? Romans 12 verse 10, if you will turn with me. Today I'm a little nice, I give you the verse, usually I'll make you turn. But if you have a different version, I brought a different version of the Bible. Up there we have the NIV, and in my hand I hold the NKJV. In the NIV he writes, be devoted to one another in love, honor one another above yourself. So what does it mean to honor? Is that you put somebody above yourself. I like to read the NKJV's version of the same verse. It says, be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love, in honor giving preference to one another. In preference giving honor. In honor giving preference to one another. See, I would describe honoring and not honoring like that. See, I've driven in 3 different countries, or 4, a lot. I've driven in the United States, I've driven in Australia, and I've driven in Singapore. And one day I was out with my friends, that was just when I first got back. I came back for a holiday, I came from Melbourne, and I was driving my friend, and my friend said a comment, said, you drive like an Australian. And I'm like, what does that even mean? What do you mean driving like an Australian? He says, you give way. You know, in Australia, it's a normal thing, because I lived there for 10 years. When you see a car trying to get out, you do not try to keep him there for 10 years. You pause, you slow down, you wave your hand, and you let people go. Something tries to filter into the left lane, you slow down and says, it's okay, come on in. In Singapore, driving is war. If you come in before me, I get really upset. and try to get back in front of you. I don't know why. In the future lane, you're supposed to come out. You step on the gas and you say, no, I go first. You try to come out yourself. So it's a rare occasion where you see people pausing and stuff. It is getting better. Like from my place to get onto Braddock Road is really hard. But recently, I've noticed good people. And some bus drivers intentionally slowing down and saying, waving me along and being nice about it. And I realized that when I started doing it to people, people start doing back to me. Honoring is that. Giving preference to somebody else. That 3 nanosecond really doesn't make a lot of difference. But it makes everybody's life better. In fact, a traffic analysis sociologist did a test. And he tested if every car was automated and if courtesy was programmed into the car. Maybe it was for Tesla, I don't know. And everyone give way to people as and when they should give way and slow down as and when they should slow down and keep to the speed limit and do not brake excessively, traffic conditions around the world will improve by at least 25%. And then he theorized that a lot of times traffic jam, do you ever wonder where traffic jam comes from? Now, I always thought I'd go to the first car and say, what happened to you? Where do you come from? Like there must be a car in the front of the jam.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
There must be a car in the front of the jam. we didn't plan. And what's happening? Why does the traffic backs up and gets so congested? And one of the reasons of why that happens is because of excessive braking. The first guy brakes too late, and the second guy brakes too much, causing the third guy to almost stop, and then the fourth guy literally stops, and then the fifth guy, That's why it takes 10 hours to get across the customs to Malacca. Excessive braking. And sometimes it's just the customs. Honoring somebody else before yourself is to say, it's okay to allow somebody to go first. Honoring means placing high value on others. See, Romans 12 verse 10 says, giving preference. Why would you give preference to somebody or something? It's when you think that person or that thing is, if not equally, is more valuable than yourself. And that's why we would give way to that. The word there is to prefer. Other version says give precedence, that's to mine. Defer to, revere. It's an attitude that common, current, modern society is missing. We want us to get preferential treatment. We want ourselves to go first. I want to get out of the line first. I need to do this. I need to do that. I was in Hainan Island a few months back, and it was a challenge trying to do this thing called queuing up. Everybody queues up, but nobody follows the queue. If you get what I'm trying to say. So we're trying to get to the high-speed rail. That was a gantry, which is no bigger and no smaller than a normal MRT gantry. It's the same size, this is the same human being. You stand in front of it because it's almost time to get there. The line kinds of form around you. But then there'll be people who decided that one line is not enough and just stand at 45 degrees. And then there'll be another person who thinks that that line is not good enough for him and stands at another 45 degrees. There is only one gantry. But there are 3 lines being formed. 3 queue lines. And that's not it. We're still queuing, and that's a good thing. When the gantry opens, you see 3 human beings trying to squeeze into the same space for one human being. It doesn't matter how old you are, how small you are, how big you are. Man, that is war. Elbow comes, hands, Some even throw their luggage forward. Different skills was involved in getting through that gantry. Thank God James is not small, Asian. James just walks straight. Despite the shoving, James toughened his shoulder, he put his head into his seat, and he keeps walking. Man, honoring one another is like queuing up and letting the person in front of you go first because they're just there. You don't have to squeeze because they are the same value as you. You are not more important than the person in front, nor less. Just as important. Putting somebody above you is not something that we're used to. It is hard. Who likes to feel that you need to defer to somebody? I was born with the attitude of non-deference. I hate authority. It was actually in my psychological test. Before you go to seminary, they put you through a 3-hour analysis to see whether you're psychotic or not. Because most of us are. That's why we went to the seminary. And so the professor, he has a PhD in pastoral counseling care, and he does an analysis of about 3 hours of things to fill in. And at the end of the first semester, he gives you back your results, and he tells you what are the things that you need to work on. Mine was exactly that. Rebellious, not listening to authority, not liking to do things the way that they've always been done. It was my main top 3 problems. And so the professor gives all of us an hour to talk through it. And he asked me, why do I feel like that? Why do I think like that? And I was very honest. I said, because I don't think they deserve my respect. I don't think they're good enough. And he asked me a question that got me thinking. What's your standard of judgment? And I realized my standard of judgment was speed. I feel that it was not good. I think I know better. I think he doesn't deserve my respect. I think there should be things done in a certain way. I decide. And I said, what if he decides the same way about you? And another person decides the same way about you too? What would the world become? What is the objective decision, rule of decision? And so for the next 3 or 4 years, I worked on that. Understanding there's time to defer to authority, but at times due to challenge it. He says it's not all bad. Because he says if it's bad, if you always do things the same way it has been done, then the Adventist church would not exist. There is a place for things to be done differently. Because what has been done has not always worked. And remember I tell you, Einstein always says, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, that's insanity. So let's not do that. I'm going to talk about actions that honors and actions that dishonor. It's also a test of your eyesight. If you can't see the words in the small fonts, go see your optometrist. I apologize that it's so small. I will read it for you. The 2 list. A list of actions that the Bible describes as honoring others and actions that dishonor. Number 1, actively try to help others look good even at your own expense. Honoring somebody. Dishonor, try to make yourself look good at someone else's expense. Yeah. Honor, word of appreciation and affirmation. Honor. Dishonor, disapproval, criticism, put downs. Number 3, give credit. For actions that dishonor, take credit. Next one, take the initiative to clear up misunderstanding. That's honoring somebody else. To dishonor, refuse to act to resolve misunderstanding. Action that honors, criticize only in private. Actions that dishonor, criticize in front of others. Do you know that it doesn't say not to criticize? Criticism is okay. When and how is important. Honoring, ask others for their opinion, typo. Dishonor, fail to seek the opinions of others. Honor, update people on their status, progress, or anything else that may affect them. Dishonor, keep people in the dark and purposefully withhold information. Honor, impartiality. Dishonor, favoritism. Honor, give your full attention, active listening. So every week that you listen to me while I'm preaching, you're honoring me. To dishonor me, show disinterest. Honor, last one. Notice when others need encouragement and give it. Dishonor, fail to notice the feelings of others, insensitive. Do you notice people around you who needs maybe a word of affirmation, encouragement, or even concern? Do you show it? Do you give it? Or do we they don't want me to talk about it? I think many a times it's okay. But many times we feel that we don't want to share those words of affirmation and encouragement is because we may not have a good relationship with them. And for us then, the step is not to withhold those words of care, but then to start building the relationship so that when we come into contact with them, we sense their feelings, we can share a word of care. Isn't that what a Christian community is about? A group of people who are kind of not related by blood. Some of us come together. We call ourselves brothers and sisters. We call ourselves family. Nobody told us to do it because there's a bond of love and care among us. Let's act upon that bond of love and care and not just say that we care and love one another. Matthew 7:12 says, so in everything, do to others what you have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. Talk about the law and what the law means, what the law says. But at the very bottom of it, the summary of it, is do to them what you want people to do to you. What do you want people to do to you? Really, deep in your heart, what do you want? Then show it and give it. Receive it. Dr. Emerson Agridge, some of us know him because we're in the couple cell, and he's an expert. He has a PhD from relationship and emotions. And he has this thing called the crazy cycle. He says that in a relationship between a husband and a wife, if the husband does not show love to the wife reacts by not showing respect to the husband. And because the husband do not have respect, he does not give love to the wife. And this crazy cycle spin and spin and spin and spin. And it will never end until, I like how he said, the more mature one takes a step back and stop it. Because the non-respect is feeding the non-love, the non-love is feeding the non-respect. One person has to either start showing respect or to show love. And this crazy cycle will stop. In the honor cycle, I think it's the same. When we honor and respect others, others are honored and respected, and they will honor and respect us. And when we are honored and respected, it uplifts us. We will in turn want to honor and respect others. But the opposite is also true. When you're constantly dishonoring and disrespecting others, they are put down, the energy is sucked out, the emotional quotient is being used up, they come back and they dishonor you, they disrespect you, and that circle continues again and again. So which cycle do we want to be a part of? Do we want SDEC to be a place where the cycle of honoring spins? Or do we want to be a place where dishonor cycle spins? It is our choice. Every single person seated here has a choice to contribute to it. Either the honor cycle or the dishonor cycle. Galatians 6:7 says, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. This is the harvest rule, the rule of harvest. What you plant in the ground, you will get it. You cannot plant banana and hope to get Mao San Wang durian. I wish it was like that. We'll be rich as there is bananas but not durians. You cannot expect to plant lady's finger and get eggplants. Lady's finger should not be planted at all. Ever. Whatever you put to the ground, you get it. It's the law of the harvest. Whatever you reap whatever you sow. The rule also applies that if you do not sow, you do not reap. You cannot get harvest if you don't put anything into it. Same with soul winning. If you want people to come to Jesus Christ, we want people to join His community, we need to sow. We need to go out there and meet people and get people, invite people, Or else we can't expect this church to just grow. If you expect this church to grow by birth, it's just going to shrink. Do you realize that last week, 8 JCs merged to become 4 JCs? You know what that's saying? There's no young people anymore in Singapore. We are a dying breed. Less and less young people in Singapore as a population, that they can close half the JC in that area. So this church, if you're depending on organic growth, birth of children, it's just going to shrink. It's going to disappear. This is the law of the house. Philippians 2 verse 2 says, then make my joy complete. Paul saying this to the Philippians, being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind. One of the challenges of the Philippi church is disunity. The community was not strong, the community was not growing. And one of the key concerns of Paul was that they was disunited, and he encouraged them to be of the same love, in one spirit and in one mind. After saying that, he warns them of the challenges. He says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interests, but each one of you to the interest of the other. He says that the solution to this unity, or to create unity, is this. I'm going to break it down. First, what are the relationship destroyers that creates disunity? Number one, competitive spirit. He says there's a competition among people to see who's better, and that drives disunity. Because in Philippians 2 verse 2, it says, do not compare. You see, it says, do not, out of selfish ambition, I want myself to go first. I want my plans to be implemented first. I want whatever I say to be done. Number two, a proud heart, a selfish heart. Why do we think that our plans should go first? Because we think our plans are better. Isn't that true? We think we're smarter. We think we know more than the other person. We think whatever we're thinking through is correct. A selfish outlook. It says, let nothing be done through selfish ambition. Selfish ambition. We only think about our benefit, our glory. What can I gain from this thing? If this plan doesn't benefit me, if it requires me to sacrifice, I won't do it. It's not benefiting me, but it may benefit 10 other people. Mother Teresa spent her life in India. That doesn't benefit her. Not really. It benefited all the people she came into contact with in Calcutta, India. But there are also relationship builders that Paul talks about in that verse in Philippians 2 verse 3. It says, first, a humble heart. Let each one of you look out not only for his own interests, but for the interests of others, in lowliness of mind. Humility, lowliness of mind is the solution to proud heart. An honoring attitude, he says, esteem others better than yourself. Think of them as higher, more valuable, giving preferential treatment. If everyone treats everybody as better than themselves, everyone benefits. Because everyone's doing the same thing. Third, serving one another. It says, esteem each other better than yourself. Look out for their interests. That's what a servant do. A servant comes and says, how can I help you? How can I cater to your needs? If all of us start catering to everybody's needs, catering to the needs of others, you know what? It's going to come back. Your needs are going to be catered to. But somebody needs to start. And finally, to honor one another and build a community that's real is an others-oriented mindset. God's people need to stop putting themselves as the focus and step out of themselves and says, others are more important than me. And you'll be surprised when you start putting others as more important than you start to receive back things that you never expected. Because others think that you are more important than them. And then this community becomes a beautiful community in which the world will wonder and say, why do I see love among these people? There's no benefits. that they gain from it, but yet they experience truth. It's based upon Romans 12:10 of honoring another person. And today, she's one of the biggest cosmetic brands in the world, and she helps young women start their own business. Based upon this principle of never forget that others have a sign that says, I'm more important. Make them feel important. Praise them to success. Never put down people. At the end of the day, God first, family second, career third. And you will reap the fruits of what you sow. There's a pianist, his name is Tim, that used to play for recitals of all the music students in the university. He's an amazing musician. You look at him play, his fingers dance on the keyboard. And it's amazing what he can do. But the thing that's really special is that, see, you can find any companies, and there are a lot of good people, but most of the students from the music school of music like to find Tim. Why? Because if you go and visit one of the recitals, you understand why. For example, a student who's a vocal student, as they sing, he will play. And when it comes to the part where he knows that the student is strong and good, he will soften his playing. So that her voice will stand out and he will clear how powerful her voice is. And when it comes to the area where she's usually weakened, he will play louder to cover up for her weakness and her mistake. So every student will go to Tim, because Tim is not about showing off his skills. Tim knows he's a good pianist. He doesn't need affirmation from people to tell him that. But then he found that his job was to honor all the students he's going to play with, to help them perform better and get through the test. And so his entire career was all about playing loudly when he should to cover for people, and softly so that people will be noticed. What are we? Are we going to be Tim? Will we play loudly when we are making mistakes to cover for them, and softly so that people can be brought up and honored? Or are we going to be other pianists who is all about us, showing off our skills, how good we are at the piano, which at the end of the day we're not graded anyway. Why are we so focused on that? And at the end of the day, after Tim plays for those recitals, you go speak to the student, because he noticed the areas of weakness. And he says, I noticed that this is the area you need to work on, and these are some advice I have. And when the student thanked Tim, he said, no, that's what I should do. That God gave me my talent of music, not for myself, but to help you. God gave all of us talents and skills and strengths and weaknesses. None of us is going to be Superman, which possess no weakness and only strength. Even Superman is afraid of kryptonite. What are you going to do with your strength and your weaknesses? Are you going to accentuate your strength, put people down to show that you're better? Or are we going to try and complement one another in this church? Use our strength to cover for their weaknesses, and they will use their weakness to cover for our strength. And together as a community, we'll all rise higher. The choice is ours as a church. And as we continue this series on building community, let's not only hear, but let's act. And as from today, from our fellowship lunch onwards, find somebody who can say a word of affirmation to you. At the end of today, I hope that all of us will not go home without hearing at least one word of affirmation. You can ignore me, I'm okay. But among yourself, affirm one another, honor one another.